Well, good afternoon, and thank you for joining our session this afternoon for the Insurance Summit. The session today is 14 million and growing SBS Transaction Manager. We have two wonderful presenters that are here with us today. We have Alexis Sakaida, who is with the Hawaii Insurance Division, and she has worked as a compliance and enforcement investigator with the Hawaii Insurance Division for over a year. Alexis assists consumers and the industry by investigating insurance-related complaints, reviews applications with criminal or regulatory histories, and takes formal actions for Hawaii's insurance code violations. Prior to working for the Hawaii Insurance Division, Alexis worked in the private sector for the industry as a claims examiner and training and development specialist. Alexis enjoys living in the Aloha State with her boyfriend and her two fur babies, and I hope we get to hear more about them. We also have Trish Gahan with us. She's with the NAIC, and she's been with us for 26 years, with 10 of those years supporting SBS. She is currently a product owner on the SBS team with a focus on market regulation, company, and transaction manager. So prior to working with SBS, Trish has worked hard supporting NAIC Complaint Database System, which is CDS, and market analysis software. Trish lives in Olathe, Kansas with her husband and cherishes time with her granddaughters. So we will go ahead and turn the time over now to Trish, and we'll start our session. Thank you.
Thank you. We are pleased to share that SBS Transaction Manager has now surpassed 14 million transactions annually. This is a milestone built on continuous innovation and collaboration. As a part of our learning objectives today, I'm going to walk you through SBS Transaction Manager and how it's scaled to support over 14 million transactions from NIPR. Alexis and I will help highlight key features and capabilities that enhance efficiencies in the regulatory workflows. And Alexis will also explore some real-world strategies to help you optimize the use of SBS Transaction Manager in your own organization. Focusing on Transaction Manager, the software, let's take a look at some numbers here. So from 2021 to 2024, SBS transaction volume grew from 12 million to 14 million. As of July of 2025, SBS has already processed 9 million transactions, positioning us to exceed 14 million again this year. The growth can be credited to SBS implementing new states, NIPR expanding transactions types to support name changes and designated responsible license producer updates, also known as DRLP, the states converting more applications to electronic NIPR transactions. While some states added pharmacy benefit managers licenses to their NIPR offerings, other existing transaction types were also added by states, such as contact changes. All of these were accomplished while maintaining an auto-approve efficiency. Nearly 93% of the transactions are auto-approved. That's approved without regulator intervention, thanks to the business rules established by each state in partnership with NIPR. Now let's talk about some of the key highlights of the growth that we've experienced and what SBS has done to help support this growth. The first one is we're monitoring and profiling transaction activity. This enables continuous analysis, helping us uncover patterns of success and pinpoint areas for improvement. All transactions, the next item is microservices for Transaction Manager. Not always there, but do exist today. And all transactions running through microservices offer stability, scalability, that resilience and a faster deployment, development to deployment of any changes that are made. The next item is staggering and processing times. So to maintain an optimal system performance, SBS employs strategic load balancing techniques, including staggering processing and transaction throttling. Transactions are pulled from NIPR hourly for each state. With these processing times, or these states, their times are staggered between 1 and 2 minutes from each other. This helps evenly distribute that system load. Throttling ensures that only a limited number of transactions are processed at any given time. This prevents bottlenecks and preserves our system responsiveness. Other items that we have implemented include the ability to know which transactions have been pulled in and at the end of that hour have been processed, and if additional transactions need to be completed before we do the next hourly run. Refactoring is another thing that we continuously do. We have ongoing efforts to improve the efficiency. Currently, this includes a focus on the approval process, and such as clear messaging when data changes between the receipt and the approval of a transaction occur. So sometimes in Transaction Manager, you go to approve a pending transaction and you'll get an error. That is caused because the condition of the data has changed since the receipt of that transaction, and we're working to provide you with better error messaging for that, so you know exactly what has occurred and why that transaction will not approve in its current state. The next item that I want to talk about is our data retention. As we go on throughout the years, the number of transactions in Transaction Manager continue to increase. So SBS has been working with states to manage invalid transactions. When we plan on limiting the retention of invalid transactions to the current year plus one previous year. Invalid transactions are those transactions where the request is already met and it's represented in that existing data, such as a duplicate license application or an appointment termination transaction where no appointment existed. We also proactively reach out to states with high volumes of pending or failed transactions to offer our support. We do this approximately twice a year, and there are things that we can do to help, as we know that both pending and failed transactions do require state intervention, and this percentage that is left can seem small, but can be quite a lot of transactions for a state to process. So while SBS handles the bulk of those transactions, we are now going to turn our attention to that 7% of transactions. And I mean, that's like 1.3 million annually that require state level intervention. Understanding how states manage these will be key to further streamlining the licensing process, as the number of those transactions will increase as that percentage has shown to maintain to be the same. That was a 93% auto approval, leaving us 7% for state intervention. So with that, we're going to again turn our attention over to that 7%, and Alexis will help us get through those. Alexis?
Thank you, Trish.
You're welcome.
Let me first start off with going over a few features that are in Transaction Manager. So you have the ability to search and manage your failed or invalid transactions, which is the data retention that Trish had just mentioned. That can be found under additional options. You also have the ability to assign between the investigators or anyone else that handles transactions. Basically, you can assign to anyone that's in the assignee drop-down list. Some common components that are used within the transaction itself is correspondence. So letters created and sent from SBS. The note section, it's a place to document any and all of your actions that you have taken in the course of the file. So logging phone calls, emails, your review of documents, things like that. There's also the attachment section. You can attach emails or PDFs or whatever documents that are related to the transaction, and follow-up. Follow-up is a way to set reminders so you can come back to the transaction if you still have other tasks that need to be done. I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into those common components in just a moment. Within the attachment warehouse, within the transaction itself, there is the attachment warehouse link. There are 2 places for this, and you can easily access the applicant's attachment warehouse without having to open up a new window or anything like that. And then the assignee dropdown allows you to search for transactions assigned to yourself, to another investigator, or multiple people at one time. So the next thing that I want to go over are these strategies. Now, for context, I want to give you a little bit more background into my branch, the Compliance and Enforcement Branch. So we conduct investigations for DOI complaints, which means we're ensuring that there's compliance with applicable statutes and rules. And we also recommend disciplinary actions when necessary. So for compliance and enforcement, we are together. We do not have 2 separate branches. Another part of our job is handling agent background screenings, or what we call agent reviews. These are individual and entity license applications and renewals that have any type of deficiency. Typically, it's going to be a criminal background or administrative action histories. But if they answer yes to any of the background questions, it will get sent to us for review. Additionally, if they answer all no to all the background questions, yet there are documents found in the attachment warehouse, we are going to do a review of it just to make sure that everything has been looked at. In the 2024 to 2025 fiscal year, my branch, that consists of 4 of us, we handled about 2,600 applications or transactions. So these are some of the strategies that we have found helpful just to be as efficient as possible. First and foremost, we have a pre-screening audit check. So when an applicant fills out their application or renewal, it'll go through our licensing branch. The licensing branch then reviews the transactions to ensure that the application meets the minimum requirements. This can be anything from they've passed the appropriate license exam, a resident applicant has gone to be fingerprinted for their criminal background check, a non-resident has an equivalent active resident license, and supporting documents have been supplied for any of the disclosed deficiencies. The transaction is not assigned to an investigator for the agent review unless the minimum requirements are met. Additionally, our licensing branch will run a regulatory action check, or RIARS check. This is a great way for us to be able to catch when an applicant answers no to background question number 2, or they have some type of late reporting of an administrative action. If the transaction is okay to be assigned to an investigator, our licensing branch will document the note section just to give us a little preface of why it is being assigned for an agent review. As you can see, the transaction manager search default screen, it will have the search type defaulted with pending transactions, and the columns picked are 8 that have been selected. When you search for an individual with this default, it'll pull up the transactions in order from oldest at the bottom to the newest at the top. So it's the date of the transaction versus the date it was assigned to you. What we have found is that creating a saved search allows us to pick additional columns that help our job out. So what we have found most useful is under the column picker to also select the notes. So this is going to show you the notes of the file. You can quickly see the note to see, did you post a note because you've already looked at it, or is it one that has been assigned to you and you still need to work it? So to create a saved search, you'll select an assignee and then select the additional columns that you would like to have. So notes, another one that is helpful is the column for assignee. This helps with ease if you're going to be searching with multiple assignees at one time. You can see which one is actually assigned to each individual person. So once you've selected your columns that you would like, you're going to hit Save Search As. Name your search. You can also give a description. And Shared allows you to create saved searches that others can access as well. So if you are the manager or branch chief of your branch, then you can create for every investigator that's under you, and then they can access it easily. So once you filled this out, you're just going to hit save. And to view that search, you're just going to hit view search, view saved searches. So this is one that I have saved for myself. And once you select it, you're just going to hit search, and it's going to configure it to be your saved search. So as you can see, the columns that I have picked are 10 because I have added notes and assignee, and that also now populates in my view, and I can quickly see the files that I have not worked and then go from there. So I'm going to select this transaction. So like I said, the transactions I'm looking at will be based on applications for licensure or renewals. At the top, what I really like is the access to everything that's related to this particular producer or this particular applicant. The globe under State Producer Licensing Database gives you direct access to the iSite for the applicant. Show SPLD will give you some general background in regards to the applicant. So their license information, their buyer's data, and 1033 waivers that have been entered into the repository. The paperclip is going to be the first link that you have to access the attachment warehouse. So clicking on this gets you to the applicant's attachment warehouse. So you don't have to go to the attachment gateway, put in an NPN and search, it'll automatically just get you into there. So I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to go to the background questions section. This is going to be where the second link to attachment warehouse is located. It's going to be attachment warehouse hyperlink. Once again, it's just going to get you to the applicant's attachment warehouse. Show questions. I don't memorize every single question. So this is going to be a really easy way to see what question it was that they had answered yes to. Additionally, if there are subsequent questions for the application, you can see the additional answers. For instance, number 7 is, do you have a child support obligation in arrearage? It asks them to answer these additional A, B, and C questions, and their answers will be here. So you can't view them unless you hit show questions. That's just some, if you needed to come back and see those. Let me go ahead and close this. The next portion is notes. The note section, like I was saying, is to document any and all actions that you've taken. So some of the ones that I utilize a lot are going to be the notes group reviews, phone calls, and email. So when it comes to notes, this in Transaction Manager, it actually kind of does like a running note. So you can't break everything up by like paragraphs. If you utilize consumer assistance, inquiry, or complaints, it's not the same. So you want to get into the habit of documenting consistently. That way, if you needed to review your notes, you can quickly find the information that you need to, because it's always going to be in the same spot of that note. For me, if I'm pending something or I've sent them something, that'll be the last thing that is documented within the note itself. So I always look for at the end of my entire note to find that information. Correspondence. What's really good about correspondence, similar to the other SBS items like consumer assistance and complaints, you can create templates. And we've created templates for the most common deficiencies. So they've answered yes to question 1, which is for their criminal background, and they've answered no to 1, yet we found some information. And then question number 2, which is in regards to the administrative actions. You can also create a template like a free form, and that way if there are any other questions that they have answered and you still need additional items, or they should have answered yes to another question but they didn't, you can use that template and just fill in the blanks with whatever question it's for and send it out that way. The attachment section is really good. It is, you can drag and drop emails. So if there are emails that aren't going to be, needing to be sent, or the information needing to be sent elsewhere, drag and drop, put them in. If you have any other type of document, PDFs, JPEGs, whatever it might be, you can attach it here, and it's, everything that's related to your transaction. One thing that our licensing branch will do for us is they'll run that regulatory actions check, or the RIARS check. What they find, they will turn it into a PDF and attach it here so that we have it all together. they will also obtain a PDF copy of the application itself. The reason why this is helpful for us is because we are also the enforcement branch, which means that if we do need to recommend any actions taken, those are items that we're most likely going to be needing to attach to our investigation report that recommends some type of disciplinary action. The final component that is very helpful to utilize is follow-up. So any transaction that I am not able to pass after my initial review gets a follow-up. This allows me to receive a notification that I have to go back to this. So when you're setting up a follow-up, you want to select the date and put a very descriptive comment of what it is that you're pending. So my follow-up date will be typically the time frame that I have allowed the applicant to provide the necessary information and documentation that I have requested for. So after sending my correspondence letter in Hawaii, we give 15 working days. And so I will set up my follow-up date to be either 15 or 16 working days. And my comment will be something just like pending receipt of documents from the Q1 letter sent. So to make sure that you actually get the notification, under your menu for SBS, you're going to just go under user settings. And you want to select for your follow-up notification setting. You can select it to be either by system, by email, or both. I don't want to get a lot of emails, so I select system only. Under my transaction notifications, I also select to have a system notification for assigned transactions. You can select others if you find it to be helpful, but it's completely up to you. I select to have rejected transactions only because I have my own files and folders with the documents that I have received or other things that were outside of SBS. And so when I see a rejected one that I don't know that the applicant is withdrawing their application, I can see the transaction and say, oh, okay, I don't need this folder anymore. So when you select system notifications, it's just going to populate on your SBS home screen under notifications with a little bell. So you'll see that populate from there. When you have a follow-up, it doesn't, so for notifications from Transaction Manager, it'll give you the transaction number, but there's no hyperlink to click on that transaction number to quickly go into that transaction. With a follow-up, it'll give you a hyperlink for the applicant's name. So if you click on their name, it'll actually get you into the transaction. So that's also why I like to use follow-up, is because I do need to go back. I can't remember everything, and it just allows quick, easy, and to be as efficient as possible. So I hope that you have found these strategies helpful, or maybe at least one, but that is all that I have.
Thank you, Alexis.
Sure.
That was awesome. Would you mind just oh, I guess I'm going to go ahead and share. There's a couple of things that I wanted to add here. Let me go ahead and resume my share. But basically, sorry, take me a minute. Let me get to the right place. Sorry. Okay, so it is difficult in beta to share a lot, but I wanted to go ahead and just kind of share just a couple of things when we talked about managing invalid and failed transactions. So this is a screen of some failed transactions. And that you get that from Transaction Manager. In that upper right-hand corner, there's the little radio button for failed, and you can search. And what you find in failed transactions can be an array of items that occur. There are some things that a state can do to reduce the number of failed transactions that they get. One most typical one is we have a control within SBS. We call it like a processing rule. And so one of the most common ones is that the renewal transaction's domicile state doesn't match the domicile state for that licensee in SBS. So this processing control, what it will allow us to do is just to adopt the domicile state from the transaction. So instead of failing the transaction, it can adopt that and move on. What I've heard from many in the past is that the domicile state, especially on non-residents, you may not get an update if the non-resident has moved their residency from like Nebraska to Oklahoma for until renewal time, and that keeping up with those can be a little bit in not smooth, I guess I should say. So that is one control that can help reduce the amount of transactions. Another one is sometimes appointment transactions fail because there's multiple entities out there with the same bean number. And there is also a way for us to map those appointments by another identifier besides bean. We use the company ID, which is not exactly the company number that you see in SBS, but it is a number that is always unique. And we can actually reduce the number of those transactions that fail because we can't decide for you if it's A or B because they share a fiend number. Another great tip that I have for you on failed transactions and other things that you can do is on September 17th in the Insurance Summit, there is going to be a workshop, SBS versus NIPR, and they're going to talk about business rules, they're going to talk about processing rules, and they may give you some other ideas of things that you might be able to do to help reduce the number of failed transactions that you get. On the screen here, as you can see, you have probably a few things that are not necessarily what you would see every day, but on any transaction, we try to give you an error message that clearly gives you a set of instructions. For example, here it tells you that you can either contact SBS to have the transaction updated with correct information, or you can mark it invalid. And some of them have additional instructions, like you could update, like a status, or you can update other information and then reprocess. So if you make the change and you reprocess, the transaction will probably may end up as a pending transaction at that point, or it may auto approve. The number, if you mark the transaction as invalid, a message is sent out to the applicant. So I'm just that, and to NIPR, indicating that that transaction is complete according to the state. So that's kind of what you can do with invalid transactions. Transaction Manager does allow you to do a multi-select and reprocess and or mark transactions as invalid upfront. So hopefully they find that to be helpful. We next, I just want to kind of show you the invalid transactions. Now, invalid transactions, again, you can get to from your transaction manager search in the upper right-hand corner under pending, under failed is the invalid search. These is more for reference, not so much for review, but it's basically saying that whatever the condition is, whatever the transaction was asking us to do, these transactions, the data set already was. If you can see here, it says active appointment was already found. So we aren't able to do an appointment termination because the appointment already exists. Sometimes this too can help by changing the way that we manage appointments. So that's also something that you may want to reach out and see if there's something we can do. But again, a lot of times we do get appointment terminations for appointments that we've never received. Another but anyways, that's what's invalid. Invalid is where also you have this filter and you can search. So, if an applicant reaches out to you and says, hey, I never, I missed a response or has any question, you have a record. You can't actually see the transaction itself, but at least you have a record of those that are received and why they were marked invalid. So managing the pending and the failed transactions are, going back to failed, are the critical parts. Again, if a transaction is sitting there in a failed status, the state is not, the applicant is not getting a response, and IPR is not getting a response. Therefore, there may be, they may follow up on it. They may, again, submit another transaction. So we have a lot of states that do a great job of keeping up on these, and other states that not outside their control may struggle a little bit. When I reach out to states about failed transactions and or pending transactions and offer help or assistance, we usually are targeting those transactions that are 6 months or older. The thought is that if an applicant has requested a change to their license, whether it's a renewal or a name change or whatever that change might be, that if you haven't processed it within 6 months, they've probably found another way to get that change made, whether they've picked up the phone and called you or sent you an email directly or just submitted another transaction through using NIPR. So we do have ways to clear these out without sending messages to the applicant. We do have other strategies that we can discuss with you on how we can reduce the number of failed transactions, at least get you to a place where you may not be feeling overwhelmed by the past and help you focus on what occurs today. With I think there was just one other thing that I wanted to make sure that I mentioned today, and that is when Alexis was talking about assigning transactions to individuals, I wanted to note that we have the ability to segregate that responsibility. So you can designate one individual to allow one or multiple individuals to allow them to sign transactions to individuals. And you can also assign security to individuals who can have transactions assigned to them. So you can segregate those responsibilities with security in SBS. I think a lot of states find that useful, just to designate, one or two people to actually do that assignment. Would you agree, Alexis, that that would, do you guys use that segregation?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah, it just kind of helps keep um, everyone from not just running amok with everything. So,
All right. And then I kind of also on just kind of the kind of a processing or behavioral notes that I would make is that there are two sets of notes in Transaction Manager. One is the notes section that Alexis showed you, and then in the approval section there is a response note. And when the transaction is approved, you can go, that response note will become a note on that individual summary page. One of the most common questions that I get is, well, what about all that correspondence, all those attachments, all of that, those notes if we reject the transaction? You can actually unreject a transaction and you can view all of those. You can actually go out and just look at a rejected transaction and you can see all of that information. So although they may never have an actual producer summary page, that information is retained and can be referenced at any time. And the way that you do that is from the producer summary, producer search. There is an option to include applications, and you do that, and it will show you a box listed all of the um, re rejected transactions and pending. That's pretty much of the only the other thing that now. Let me see if I can. Alexis, do you still have beta up?
yes,
Okay. Would you mind sharing?
sure.
All right. All right. Since we will be getting to questions here in just a moment, the one of the things that Alexis had talked about is the attachment warehouse. And if you scroll down just a little bit, and you see on, I think you have search results for it. If you go ahead and do your search, Alexis, that would be nice on yours. I didn't note that if a transaction has an NPN, then the attachment warehouse will go directly to that applicant section of the attachment warehouse and show you any documents that are available. And you can see here, there's one that doesn't have an NPN. The NPN, it isn't assigned to business entities always right up front. But if you're ever missing that NPN on the transaction, what the attachment warehouse link will do is it will bring up the search page for the attachment warehouse where you would then put in other information besides the NPN, whether that's their first name or last name, to do that search to find any documents that may be in the attachment warehouse for them. Some the most common transaction that does not have an NPN is an original business entity application. So that's the most common, well, it's actually a little bit more than that. It's the resident business entity original applications that are the most common not to have an NPN. So just a heads up on that. But we are, um, let me see, I think there may have been one more item that I can share with you today. And anyway, I do want to let you know that Transaction Manager does support other areas than producer, education, and the company applications also. But today our primary focus was producer and those 14 million transactions that we were talking about. So I would like to go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and resume for now, Alexis, and we might need to go back in there if some, depending on what, oh my goodness, what those questions are. But I'd like to go ahead and open things up for any questions anyone has.
Thank you, Trish and Alexis. There aren't any questions right now in the chat, but if anyone has a question, they can post it there, or they can feel free to raise their hand and unmute, or we can assist in unmuting you. If you raise your hand, we can see who you are so that you can ask some questions. We do have about 4 minutes left for you to be able to do that.
And during this time, I will also let you know that Transaction Manager does support protecting PII data as much as possible. You may have noticed when we are looking at what columns that you can add to the transaction search that SSN and FIN are included in that, but we do not display the full SSN on the screen, only the last 4. And if you were ever to use the feature to extract the data into a spreadsheet, we do not transfer that SSN, not even the last 4, over to that data extract to help protect the share and confidentiality of that Social Security number. All right. Oh, great.
Yeah, so we did have one question that just came in. It's for Alexis. It says, when you correspond with entities outside of SBS, such as using Outlook, what is the best process to upload and document those interactions?
So to upload, I just drag and drop. So you hit upload attachment, and you can actually just drag your Outlook email, hover over the attachment portion, and then it actually just will upload there. So it's really easy and simple. When I document it, I like to just document the entire email itself so I don't have to reopen the email. I'll just do, the date, time, everything, and then post that as an email.
Thank you. And then we have another one that is posted. It says, why is the submitter not notified automatically when a transaction or when their transaction fails?
Because there is, I would say, when a transaction fails, the majority of the time, the state resolves that failure. There's a smaller percentage of the time where the state contacts SBS and we help resolve that failure. So it's more of just a delay between when the transaction fails and when it can be resolved to whatever ending state that it wanted, whether it's approved or rejected. So we don't send any information back to NIPR saying, hey, this failed, and we don't notify the applicant of that failure because majority of the time it can be resolved without their input. Hopefully that helps.
That's great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, this does wrap up our time. Is there any additional information you want to share with our participants in the session today before we close?
I do have one. I forgot. Earlier this year, I believe it was in February, the attachment warehouse link will automatically populate in the transaction if there are any documents that have been supplied for a background question and the applicant has answered all no. So they may not want to disclose something to your state. However, you will see it because you'll get that link, even if they don't supply a link for their application. So that's a really good update that they did.
Great. Thank you so much, Alexis. And thank you, Trish. Thank you for being our presenters today on this wonderful SBS Virtual Insurance Summit session. Everyone have a great day.
Thank you so much.